Welcome to another Advisor Insights video here from Huntin Fool. In this episode, Garth Jenson, Isaiah Joner, and myself, Jerrod, we're gonna break down a pack dump after we just got back from an amazing Alaskan black bear and transported halibut fishing trip with Ninilchik Charters. We see a lot of these pack dumps come before the trip, and we think that after the trip is the best time to look back at your gear and ask yourself the question, did I bring the right stuff? So we're gonna do that here shortly and walk you through all of that, but the one thing we did all agree on is that basically the ideal scenario is to bring a large waterproof duffel of some kind, probably 9,000 cubic inches, or approximately, a hard weapon case, whether it's bow or gun, and then we prefer to walk on the airplane with your backpack. You got to keep it small enough, but your actual hunting backpack can be a carry-on as long as you don't have your lighters and any sharps on it. So we all agreed on that. It was a great way to get on the on board the boat with about the right amount of gear, and of course, airline-wise, we had to stay under 50 pounds for our checked bags.
Yeah, no, it worked out great. I mean, the one thing we did do prior to going there that all of us that came in handy is we all had to download our onyx mapping so we could get those maps on our phone because there's no service where we're at.
Yep. That's the other unequivocal thing that we're in agreement on.
And as a transported hunt, you know, they can't help you at all. You're on your own, so knowing where you're at and how you're getting on and off the land is ideal. So
yeah, and you should spend some time pre-scouting it for that reason. Again, they cannot point you in the right direction necessarily, so Onyx was crucial to all of our success on this particular trip. Also, in addition to Onyx, we used the 3D map from Huntin Fool a ton while we were e-scouting this stuff. It's got better imagery in Alaska than either Google Earth or Onyx does in that case, plus with the 3D tilt, pan, rotate, waypoint management. And we were able to mark up all of our areas that we wanted to pre-scout and then easily export them into your Onyx account and vice versa. So it was another important tool in preparing for this hunt since it's an unguided hunt. Without further ado, we're gonna dump these packs and see what gear we brought.
So what I'm gonna do here is show you our hard case and what we have in our hard case. And basically, the reason for a hard case, the only true reason is for the firearm. You must keep your firearm in a hard case that's locked. And basically everything else that is in here around, I have a bow, but I did take a pistol, which is right here. So for that reason, it does have to be locked. Everything else is basically packed around this to kind of protect my bow and protect the things that are in here. So start off, I mean, it really just comes down to padding, cushioning, and what you can fit in it. It's kind of hard to get these up to 50 pounds because there's so little room in here. So anything that's fairly heavy, you can put in this case as long as it'll fit. But like I say, weight, padding, this that came in around 43 pounds. So you can see all of this stuff that I put in here was basically clothing. I have pajamas. I mean, I got my rain gear right here. There's my firearm. There's my bow. I got my Leatherman in there, my arrows. I think these are some, what do they call these? Spikes? Crampons, I was informed. But I have these in here. Anyways, this is all basically packed in here around my bow, around the firearm. And this is this, reason for the hard case. It's kind of just easy to throw stuff in to try and get as much crap as you can in and around this bow when you go on your trip.
all right, unlike Garth, I brought a gun on this hunt with me. My SKB case starting out weighed right around 23 pounds, so I didn't have a lot I could put in here, but I did want to make it as close to 50 pounds as possible. So I had my shooting bag, basically a bunch of base layer and clothing I put on top to keep everything from shifting around. Had my tripod, trekking poles, my gun cover, the actual gun itself, a couple boxes of ammo here, and then bipod, binos, suppressor and stuff. So right there I was, right at 50 pounds with all this. Again, when you have a case that's heavy out of the gates, you're not gonna have a lot of stuff you can put in there, so make wise use of it. All right, so as Jerrod mentioned earlier, this was a transported hunt. It was a boat-based hunt, so we were on a 50-foot boat, had 6 bunks on it. They prepared all our food, meals, and everything, so we were able to splurge on the gear we were able to bring. We didn't have to bring camping gear, bivvy, any of that. So it was kind of a luxury hunt to bring anything we wanted, basically.
Yeah, I figured the way it went for me is anything I needed, I could put in there, and then up to having 50 pounds in each bag. I just wanted to make sure and come in under that so I didn't get charged overages on my extra baggage on the airlines.
Yeah, and you gotta leave a little bit of room. Pro tip for goodies for your significant other, so you can do some little knick-knack shopping up in home.
Yes.
Yeah, so we jumped on a call with Garrett before we went up there. Basically he said, bring whatever you want. We ditched our hard cases, left them in the vehicle at the dock so we weren't fumbling over those, but basically we all brought on our backpacks and one big dry bag, and we had plenty of space.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that is an important question for your transporter, is like, if they do have space considerations that they want you to honor, make sure you do that. And also that ditching those hard cases was a really big deal in this case. Saved a ton of room on the boat, and so you might want to check with them too. If you don't have enough room in the vehicle you're taking, or if you're flying in and don't have a place to leave it like we did, check with the transporter and see if you've got a place to ditch the hard cases.
And one thing I did when we ditched the hard cases, I brought up a smaller 𝗀𝘂 bag that I could take all the stuff that was in my hard case and then put it in this smaller 𝗀𝘂 bag, this waterproof bag that I could just then take on the boat. So then I had an additional bag, but it was a small bag, so it was insignificant.
Yep. Yeah, so basically all we had to bring for sleeping gear was, all I brought was a sleeping bag and a dry sack, and I have a little pillow in here. The boat stays pretty warm, so this was just like a 30-degree bag, a square one, so it was a little more comfortable than a mummy bag.
Plus with 6 dudes sleeping down there, it was plenty warm.
Yeah. And luckily we didn't have to bring pads either because they already have mattresses down the hole.
But I did bring one just in case it wasn't comfortable. Super light, hardly a consideration for weight at all. I brought one, I ended up not using it, but it was just in case the beds weren't that comfortable.
Yeah. So I did the same thing as Joner. I just brought a little bit more roomy sleeping bag. It wasn't quite a big temperature rating, but I didn't need it. And then for me, I brought the pistol because I brought a bow. Ended up shooting my bear with a rifle. But just in case, I brought that for backup. And then that's as far as weapons. Now as far as these go, these are 𝗎𝘂s. I brought that. You can slip those on for getting on and off the boat. So when they're running you out in the skiff, you can jump off in the tide. They still won't come over your boots. You can wear those with these boots, which was nice. So I was able to do that instead of, like I think you guys brought wiggies on yours.
Right.
So they brought wiggies. That's similar thing, so you can get on and off the boat, but
they just don't have tread on them like those.
Right.
So they're a little lighter, a little more compact. But they're designed just to slip on, cross the creek, get them back off, whereas those are more robust.
Ultimately, I think those are a better solution than the 𝗎𝘂s, but I had the 𝗎𝘂s already.
Yeah, and looking at the time of year we were up there and just talking to the transporter before time and looking over on our map and whatnot, we figured that waders was going to be our best bet because the snow was still pretty high on the mountain. We figured most of the bears would be down on the tidal flats and on the beaches, so I pretty much hunted
them all the time.
Yeah, hunted exclusively in the waders there. I packed mine in a separate bag because after skinning bears and gutting and dealing with a bunch of fish, I didn't want that over everything else, so I brought a separate bag for my wader boots, my hunting boots, and my waders that I kept in here on the way back.
Right. And we did notice there's a lot of difference in waders. I brought Allens. They're cheaper than the 𝗏𝐶𝑠s. 𝗏𝐶𝑠s are really popular for these kind of hunts. I brought Allens. They were a little cheaper. They're also slimmer cut around your legs, which actually was an advantage for stocking. It wasn't quite as hard to keep the legs from like making a bunch of noise. Yeah. But I lived in these things. I did the same thing on a grizzly bear hunt a couple of years ago. You think, I don't want to have to deal with it. But honestly, you're in and out of the water the whole time. You're getting out of the skiff and into the skiff. Most of the time he has to drop you off and you jump out, you're mid-thigh deep or so, and wade into shore with your weapon to start hunting. One consideration there, I have plantar fasciitis, and I put good insoles in my wader boots because they're not traditionally known to be a real comfortable boot. So I actually put sheep feet inside of mine, and it made it way more comfortable for walking around.
Yeah, and looking back, I packed wading pants, and these are the Sims wading pants. I think those are probably a better option because they're just as lightweight. And one thing that I have noticed in hunting both in this caribou and this black bear hunt, this big belt right here that's used to kind of cinch this up makes it a little bit cumbersome for a backpack, because then you put your backpack around there and it's just not comfortable, and it ends up digging into your side, and so I think I would go with those lightweight hip waders instead and use the suspenders to hold it up, and then you could have it a little bit more comfortable with the backpack.
I agree with that. One thing I actually do with mine so it's not as hot, because it does, even on cold days, you get so overheated walking around the waders. I actually run a real thin 𝗀𝗃 belt on mine and then fold the chest waders down over the top like wading pants, but it's small enough that I can put the strap of my backpack around.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so anyone that's hunted Alaska, you know you're gonna lose some days to weather. We were planning on it being rainy throughout this trip. It was actually beautiful with sunshine, so I think we all brought 2 pairs of rain gear with us, or 2 sets of rain gear, planning on that it's kind of difficult to dry it off on the boat, so you had an extra set you could slip in and out of, but the waders were definitely the way to go on this one. And if it does start raining, and throw a shell over the top. So
yeah, and just having hunted Alaska before, the one thing that you always look at, and doing a boat hunt like this before, where you're transported on, is once you get back to the boat, if you are in torrential downpours, and let's say we weren't hunting tidal flats and we were having to go up on the mountain more, we probably wouldn't have wore waders. And then in that case, once you get down at the end of the day, it can be a little bit tricky to dry your gear out and dry your rain pants off, dry your everything off. So having 2 sets of rain gear would have come in handy had that come into play, because then you could have hung 1 set of rain gear up and hunted out of the next.
Yeah. I'd way rather have 2 sets of rain gear, even though we didn't need any basically,
right,
than to have too many underlayers. I would replace underlayers all day with an extra set of rain gear.
Right. And usually in Alaska it's wet, and that's why I brought the Yukon and the Katana. The Yukon, basically I was planning on hunting out of. If I was going to do that, that would have been my pants. In lieu of my pants, I just put a little base layer underneath it. So.
Right. Rewinding real quick to the waders. I just wear like I use like the Peloton 130 zip off 𝗀𝗃 bottoms underneath it. I think it's way too hot to wear pants under them for me personally. I don't know what you guys did, but I like a thin long john bottom underneath the waders only, even on cold days.
So that's exactly what I did.
I did the attack pants, but open up the hip zips on them, so I got a little airflow in there.
You were complaining about being way too hot too.
I was too hot.
Yeah.
But it was like 65 and sunny.
Yeah, it was as nice as Alaska ever gets.
Yeah.
Back to rain gear, that is probably another pro tip to ask your transporter, is 2 questions on drying out gear. The most important pieces of gear if you are hiking up and using a pair of hiking boots or your rain gear is, what does the boot dryer situation look like? Are there enough boot dryers to accommodate all of our guys? Are they powerful enough to completely dry a soaked pair of boots overnight? And then also same for, like Garth was saying, you don't know what the situation is going to look like on the individual boats. Again, we were with Ninilchik on their boat, the 𝗙cie, which we've hunted on a couple times. It's pretty spacious, but even there, it gets too crowded to get everything completely dry on one night.
Yeah, they have covered. I mean, you could hang it up and have it be covered from the elements and protect it from the elements. But at the end of the day, there's not enough space in living quarters where it actually gets heat.
Enough heated space.
To actually dry that stuff out, so.
Yeah, so going into it, and since we didn't really have a weight restriction, I did bring 2 pairs of boots. One of them was a 𝗙cie Guides, non-insulated, and then another 𝗙cie, the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, just in case we were hiking in the rain and they were wet. And then a pair of boat slippers. But
a manly pair of boat slippers.
Garth had it dialed. If I was to go again, I would bring a pair of the lightweight extra toughs, because if you're on the boat fishing, like having those boots that you can slip on and off easy without having to lace up your boots looked like the ticket.
Yeah, this came in handy for sure. And basically, I just thought to myself, well, probably when we're fishing, we'll be spending most of the time in this, especially going back and forth from the cabin out onto the deck. These are going to be way more handy, and plus it's going to protect me from any water and stuff like that that's going to be coming onto the boat, especially in the back.
Yeah, it's definitely a pro move.
So that worked out good.
I did the same thing on boots. I brought 2 pairs. I bought the new Ninilchik 𝗀𝗶𝘃 3.2, kind of lighter, medium weight hikers. And then I also brought a pair of 𝗀cie guides as well. Again, we didn't hunt out of anything but our waders for the most part, but it was nice to know I had them in case. And again, we all just focused on staying under that 50-pound weight limit each, and then focus on, again, boots, outer shell, rain gear, the stuff that's the most important. The under layers you can rewear and rewear and rewear if you need to.
Yeah, which is basically what I did the whole time. And I think I swapped out one day just because it was convenient. I had it.
Yeah, and again too, keeping everything organized on these hunts is important. So like I think we all had, like, this was all my hunting gear, extra pants, rain gear, base layer, extra underwear, socks, everything of that. So that way when you're in and out of the boat, it's easy to get into what you need.
Yeah.
And most of these boats have cubbies, like a dedicated cubby to your bunk, and trying to dig through a big pile is a mess. So keeping it in, like, all my clothes for the most part are in that, but then they're in individual bags inside of that, broken out by.
Probably like this.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, that's what I had mine in.
What about trekking poles?
Didn't use them. No. I think we all did bring trekking poles up there. Again, we got very fortunate. A lot of the bears were down low on the beach, and so the hunt was pretty quick and easy. But even packing it out, I wish I would have had one with me, just because once you throw a heavy pack on with the bear, it's kind of nice to have
or a whole bear on your shoulders.
So because you are where we were hunting, you're crossing these small creeks and whatnot.
And mud.
Yeah, fairly
Super sticky
often.
mud.
So, and the slick rocks after the tide rolls out.
I watched you fall without a load on. Remember
Do you
that?
have video evidence?
I don't. I wish I did.
So yeah, trekking poles, I pretty much bring these on any hunt, regardless, just because they are nice to have.
Yeah, fortunately I had mine after I killed my bear, so I was able to use that to shuttle it back and forth over the beach and get everything taken care of. The one thing that I did bring on there, obviously, that I didn't use, well, I used it, but I didn't need it. It's that little liner that goes in our XL backpacks. Had it been raining, that would have come in very handy to keep everything protected inside that bag. I also take a rain cover with me as well, or pack rain cover, but it just gives you an added layer of protection, especially in Alaska. Honestly, this was not like an Alaska hunt, just because we did not have the rain that usually springtime in Alaska brings.
Yeah. Couple non-necessary items I brought, just in case it was raining, is it's like a 12 by 12 little tarp, packable tarp. That way, Alaska, I mean, what do we have, 16 hours of daylight when we were there?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, so long days. So if you get dropped off and you're planning on spending all day there and it's raining, might be nice to have something you can stay out of cover with. And then I brought my little packable chair, but did not use either of those.
Yeah.
The tarp does come in handy though. Once you get your bear down, spread that out, and then you can put all the meat on there, kind of keep it out of the elements, off the rocks or the grass or what have you. So I took one as well. That's what I use mine for.
Yep.
Tripod, spotting scope. For me, the only reason I brought this, because looking at bears, it wasn't that important to me I just wanted to identify a mature boar, and then it didn't matter. I didn't have to really drill in the size, but I brought this to run phone scope footage off of more than anything else. This little scope is so stinking handy. It's from 𝗀𝗂. It's their Prominar TSN 553. It's so light, so small. I just couldn't afford to not take it anyway, so I threw it in along with a good tripod so I could take some phone scope footage, and then if I had to glass up a bear. But I mean, we glassed all our bears with 10s, honestly.
Yeah, I opted not to even bring a tripod or a spotting scope, and I just took my binos.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I couldn't have took the phone scope footage, but I was more than adequate enough to be able to find bears and do a good job analyzing it.
Yeah, you did not need anything but 10s on this trip.
Yeah.
No, and I brought a tripod just basically to run backup cameraman as we split up. So, or else I probably wouldn't have brought one.
And go ahead.
No,
I just say for me, the inReach, that's something I always take with me on pretty much every hunt anymore, but definitely in Alaska, because this was the lifeline for the most part. If you got out of range of your transporter, you could keep connected with him, let him know if you needed a pickup, and just what was going on, and he could relay to you if there was any change in plans. But this is something that definitely you'll need to take.
No.
And that's a super important point. They, as a transporter, any licensed transporter, they cannot guide you on the hunting. On the fishing, they were completely our guides. They helped us on halibut and everything. But on the hunting, they can't even say, oh, there's a bear over there, right? If there's a bear right on the beach next to you. They also aren't going to babysit you and tell you, hey, don't forget. They have great radios. They have everything you need to be in communication with them, but they will not babysit you. They can't. And so the first night we all bailed off without any radios, and he thought he had his inReach.
Forgot the inReach and radio, so then
So we're back on the beach signaling
I had
with
my
the headlamp.
headlamp getting them to come over once we got the bear down.
So fortunately, you guys took it the next day because I was tagged out. Well, both me and Cody had tagged out. We were gone fishing, and we had got an inReach that said they needed a pickup.
Yep.
So, and we were out of radio, like there was no radio
out of
communication
touch
at that point.
Yeah, there's literally no cell service up there, so if you want to stay in contact with family back home, definitely need to bring an inReach.
A couple other pieces of specialized gear we all took. We all took $20 crampons. Didn't use them again. Yeah, as you can tell, still in the bag. And I don't know, that's one piece of gear I probably wouldn't take next time. It's fairly heavy. They've got sharp edges, so you can't put them in your check bag or your carry-on bag. They got to go checked. I don't think I would take them next time. I did take a water filter. There's tons of water in Alaska. I felt like I'd rather carry a little bit extra weight in the filter because it's a lot less than a 32-ounce Nalgene, and then just pump water out in the woods if I got thirsty.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I think a group of two, as long as you had one water filter, you're probably both good.
100%.
No, and I mean, we all had our basic kill kits, have a couple knives in here, medical gear, extra battery, headlamp, flagging tape, stuff like that.
Fire starting equipment.
Fire starting equipment.
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary that I want to pack on any trip. So
I did take a small, lightweight, this is an 𝗀𝘂, just gun cleaning kit, so that if we did get rain, I could, basically take that and get all the water off, so prevent rust, build up, things like that. Come in handy whether you're just packing a pistol or a rifle. So I do make sure and bring that along.
Outside of that, I think the rest of the gear is pretty basic for any hunt you would go on. Just consider the time of the year and the temperatures, the average temperatures. Again, if you got any specialized questions or needs, you definitely need to contact your transporter ahead of time, work out those details. I think I even saw something about a 𝗙PAP. Like if somebody needed a 𝗙PAP and they had to run the generator 24 hours a day, there was an extra charge, etc. So make sure you ask those specialized questions ahead of time. It's honestly as much fun as you can possibly have in the spring. And I can't say enough good things about Garrett, our captain, Gavin, our first mate on there, and Ninilchik in general. Phenomenal operation. We saw tons of bears.
yeah.
Well, we were all tagged out, 2 with a bow, 3 with a gun in about 12 hours of combined hunting.
Typically, not typical.
We're not promising that's what everybody
But I think we hit it right. I mean, it happened to be that everything was greening up down low and everything up in the midsection and up high was not quite greening up yet. So they basically were flooding all of those tidal flats and just mowing down the grass.
Yeah, and again, when you're planning a hunt or a trip with your buddies and you don't have all this gear, like I know a couple of you guys brought jet boils and some of us didn't, so you can do with without a lot of this stuff, but it was kind of nice knowing we had it in case we needed it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, to Garth's point, we tried to just do it in groups of 2. If we had 3 groups of 2 on there. If we had 3 of everything, then we called it good, and we just share.
All right, I think that about wraps it up. Again, this was a transported bear hunt on the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. So this was all the gear we had. I know Garth has spent some time up there on some caribou hunts in Kodiak along with Jerrod, so they have some good experience on these transported hunts. So if you have any questions, give us a call, leave us a comment. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel.